people in Trump's orbit who associated with Epstein really does seem to grow by the day. There's a new story every day. And that is to say nothing of the thousands of times Trump himself is mentioned in the files. But guess what? Things are not going much better for the members of the cabinet who may have been breathing a sigh of relief because they are not in the Epstein files. I mean, this was the scene outside a Border Patrol facility in Otay Mesa, California today, where DHS Secretary Kristi Noem was making an appearance to tout Trump's border policies. Protesters who had gathered outside the facility, you can see them there, you can hear them there, were chanting shame, that's what they're saying right now, so loudly that police vehicles appeared to be blaring their sirens just to drown out the noise, again, of people screaming shame. All of which led to a scene inside the facility where Kristi Noem basically struggled even to hear the question she was being asked. It was so chaotic, this whole scene, I'm gonna show it to you, it almost felt like a spoof of a Kristi Noem press conference.
Okay, good. Good afternoon, everybody. I think you're asking about detention facilities and the standards in it. Are you talking about our funding bill? I heard you ask about Operation Metro Surge and CBP and ICE, and what was the 287G?
I'm sorry. What was that? I couldn't hear you over the sounds of outrage and alarm that follow me everywhere I go. So I'm sorry if I didn't, as articulately as usual, spew my venom towards immigrants, because I couldn't hear you over the sirens and the screaming of shame. Now, that Noem scene comes just one day after Trump's attorney general spent 5 hours, and we talked a lot about this last night, embarrassing herself before Congress, shouting like an unhinged mean girl at lawmakers and evading questions, pretty much all of them, about her handling of the Epstein files. At one point, she even tried to deflect a question about why she hadn't charged any of Epstein's associates by saying that this was all a distraction from the Dow breaking 50,000 points. And yes, it was as awkward as it sounds. And that bizarre moment in the hearing yesterday wasn't just a forgotten blip. I mean, we talked about it, but wasn't forgotten. I mean, that performance has led to a chorus of outrage from MAGA supporters, with multiple pro-Trump voices even calling on her, Pam Bondi, to resign. And by the way, today the market dropped 600 points, bringing the Dow back below 50,000. So there's that awkwardness, too. Look, the Trump administration is not having a good time right now. That's one way of putting it. It's not just protesters and MAGA podcasters who are rejecting their agenda. Yesterday, the Republican-controlled Congress failed to stop a bill to end some of Trump's disastrous tariffs from reaching the House floor. The bill passed with 6 Republicans, joining nearly all Democrats in a humiliating blow to Trump's signature economic proposal. And it's not just that. It's not even just Congress. Where he controls Congress, the Republicans do. His agenda is also losing in the courts over and over and over again. I mean, this week, a federal grand jury rejected the Trump administration's attempt to indict 6 Democratic lawmakers for participating in a video to remind service members that they shouldn't follow unlawful orders. And just today, a federal judge blocked Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth from trying to punish Senator Mark Kelly, because he's still at it, Pete Hegseth, for participating in that same video. In a scathing opinion, the judge said, quote, rather than trying to shrink the First Amendment liberties of retired service members, Secretary Hegseth and his fellow defendants might reflect and be grateful for the wisdom and expertise that retired service members have brought to public discussions and debate on military matters in our nation over the past 250 years. There you go. Those are just a few. I could go on of many court losses the Trump administration has suffered recently, including several that have come down in just the last few hours. I mean, earlier today, a federal judge ended the Trump administration's deportation case against the father of 3 U.S. Marines who was detained while landscaping outside an IHOP in Southern California last summer. In another decision today, a federal judge ordered the administration to facilitate the return of 137 men who were deported at the beginning of Trump's term after this administration labeled them gang members. Then the administration faced another setback in the case of 2 men accused of attacking ICE agents with a shovel, one of whom was shot by ICE during the incident. Well, tonight, the Trump administration was forced to drop all criminal charges against those men. They were forced to admit in a court filing that, quote, newly discovered evidence in this matter is materially inconsistent with the allegations they had made. You don't say. And just before we came on air, a Trump-appointed judge issued a particularly stinging order mandating that ICE give all of the detainees in Minneapolis access to a private lawyer. She wrote, quote, "It appears that in planning for the crackdown in Minneapolis, the government failed to plan for the constitutional rights of its civil detainees. The government suggests, with minimal explanation and even less evidence, that doing so would result in chaos. The Constitution does not permit the government to arrest thousands of individuals and then disregard their constitutional rights because it would be too challenging to honor those rights." Yeah. I mean, they just also, by the way, all of that, they just kept losing. They keep losing in court. The entire cabinet is a dumpster fire, and they cannot shake the lingering stink of the Epstein files. They're weak right now, and they know it. And all of that brings me to what is arguably the Trump administration's biggest loss of all this week. Because today, Donald Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, announced that the administration will end its immigration enforcement surge in Minneapolis. Now, to be clear, and I said this at the beginning of the show, and that's how I feel, but most importantly is how people in Minneapolis feel. Both residents and public officials in Minneapolis are appropriately taking a "we'll believe it when we see it" approach to this announcement. And Homan is claiming that a small footprint of officers will still remain in the area for an unspecified period of time. So that could mean a lot of things, especially from someone who played a leading role in the family separation policy, who works for an administration that lies with abandon. Could mean a lot of things. But the fact that the administration felt the need to make this announcement at all is a sign that they know they are losing on this issue and are desperate for some kind of an exit strategy. And you can tell how desperate they are by listening to the way Tom Homan tried to claim some sort of victory and success today.
This surge operation and our work here with state and local officials to improve coordination and achieve mutual goals, as well as our efforts to address issues of concern here on the ground, have yielded the successful results we have came here for.
According to Tom Homan, it was all a success, this whole nightmare we've been watching unfold. Their work with state and local officials achieved our mutual goals. We wanted to come into Minneapolis, terrorize people in their communities, arrest and even kill American citizens. And we succeeded at that. Good on you, Tom Homan and the Trump administration. Now, not one of those state and local officials who have been dealing with this situation agrees with Tom Homan that there have been successful efforts to achieve mutual goals or address issues of concern. There was no kumbaya moment between local officials and ICE. In fact, in the wake of this news, those local officials made it clear this fight is not over, and ICE still has a lot to answer for in Minnesota.
The fact of the matter is, they left us with deep damage, generational trauma. They left us with economic ruin in some cases. They left us with many unanswered questions. Where are our children? Where and what is the process of the investigations into those that were responsible for the deaths of Renee and Alex? You don't get to break things and then just leave without doing something about it.
Nationwide, they were looking to implement a national agenda based on coercing us to change local policy. And here's the thing, we didn't. The people of Minneapolis stood up. They stood up for their neighbors. They loved on each other. And I think that's the kind of patriotism that is ultimately going to get us through this.
Now, what's clear is that this potential retreat, and let's hope it is the result of sustained and relentless pressure from the people of Minnesota. They're winning this battle. The Trump administration is losing. And Tom Homan and Stephen Miller. For more than a week now, we have been following the story of an anonymous whistleblower from the intelligence community who alleges that Trump's director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, spiked a former whistleblower report they filed last year. And a whistleblower report about someone close to Donald Trump. Okay, so that's what we knew. That's already kind of edgy. I've been obsessed with the story. And then today we learned that that person close to Donald Trump is none other than Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. As the Wall Street Journal described it today, the report centers around a conversation between two foreign nationals last year discussing Jared Kushner and reportedly Iran. Beyond that, we have no idea what the content of that conversation was. Though a senior U.S. official tells MS Now that the discussion about Kushner was just, quote, salacious gossip. Okay, we'll see when we learn more. But the whistleblower alleges that Gabbard limited the sharing of that content for political purposes, an allegation Gabbard fiercely denies, and which her spokeswoman claims is baseless and politically motivated. Okay. Now, the whistleblower also alleges that the NSA's general counsel's office failed to report a, quote, potential crime to the Justice Department that was raised by the content of the conversation. I mean, those are some freaking serious allegations, just to state it. We don't know what's in there, but those are serious allegations. But I'm going to zoom out for a second, because part of what is amazing about this story is the idea that there could still be another shoe left to drop. When it comes to our understanding of Jared Kushner and his role in U.S. diplomacy, I mean, let's just take stock in what we already know just from public reporting. Just days after leaving the White House, Kushner started a brand new venture capital firm, and despite having no experience at all, somehow managed to get a $2 billion investment from a fund led by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. In the 3 years after that investment, Kushner's firm got paid at least $112 million in fees from investors, while not giving those investors any profits in return. But somehow, even after that track record was made public, in 2024, Kushner's firm managed to score another $1.5 billion investment from funds tied to the governments of the UAE and Qatar. Now, Kushner's firm, Affinity Partners, says that everything is on the up and by the book. Of course, that's what they say. But even Kushner himself does not shy away from saying what makes his firm such a unique and attractive investment.
What would you say the biggest differentiator is for Affinity compared to other growth funds?
We're able to do things on the geopolitical side, on the connection side, on the problem-solving side that I think that they found very valuable as well.
On the connection side, there's lots in there. Now, while Kushner's firm is raking in all of that cash, multiple billions of dollars from Middle Eastern sovereign wealth funds alone, Kushner is also simultaneously serving as a quote-unquote volunteer for the Trump administration, as an off-the-books foreign diplomat of sorts. Nothing shady about that at all. I mean, he's negotiated ceasefires in Gaza. He's met with Putin to discuss Ukraine. Here he was just last week trying to negotiate a new nuclear deal with Iran. Given how much money Kushner is receiving from countries with a lot at stake in those negotiations, that feels like quite a conflict of interest. And all of that is already public knowledge. That's all public. So given all of that, what could possibly be in this whistleblower report that could make all of that look any worse? And how can that whistleblower make what they know public? I have the perfect person to ask. Joining me now is Andrew Buckeye, the Chief Legal Counsel at Whistleblower Aid and the attorney for the whistleblower at the heart of this story. First of all, you are doing such incredible work right now. We wouldn't know so much of what we know about this government without whistleblowers. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And it's not just me. It's my team at whistleblower.aid.org.
Absolutely. Okay, so let me start with this. Tulsi Gabbard has defended her decision to not share your client's report with Congress by saying that her office's inspector general deemed the content of the report not to be credible. That's her argument. That's what others have echoed. What do you make of that defense?
First of all, that credibility determination has no bearing on our client's right to take this to Congress. By law, one, that disclosure and its contents should be sent to the Senate and House Intelligence Committees, and two, our client should be able to and must be able to, by law, meet with those members. Second, the issue of credibility. It's been kind of bothering me for quite some time because whenever somebody thinks about credibility, they're questioning, is somebody credible? Can you trust this particular individual? In this particular case, what the ICIG or the DNI is looking at is saying, well, because the whistleblower read something in a report or was part of a meeting, and perhaps Tulsi Gabbard herself said, well, I didn't do X because she's first person. Her word is taken over somebody else's. In my opinion, that's a questionable way to define or figure out credibility.
I've seen Senator Mark Warner, I've talked to him about this, and Jim Himes and others basically say, we can't make any assessment because it's so redacted. That sounds familiar. Why can't your client just give them an unredacted report?
So the first thing, just stepping back for a moment, the reason why the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act exists is because members of the intelligence community can't just go to the Hill and go to the intelligence committees and provide them classified information. Why? Well, even though all the staff and senators may have security clearances, they may not be read into the specific issues at hand.
And a need to know.
And a need to know. So in this particular case, as it's become public, from what I understand, this would involve the Gang of Eight. So had our client done that, that would have been the mishandling of classified information. Our client did everything right from the get-go. Even before retaining me and retaining whistleblower8.org, they went to the IG's office. There's also another thing that the IG mentioned, I think, in his statement from last week, which is that there was a lot of classified information. Maybe this was the general counsel. There was a lot of classified information that was put into the intake form. That's not true.
Oh, that's false.
That's false. The intake form was only 1 page. There are subsequent meetings that a whistleblower can have with the IG's office where they're actually providing evidence, going into the details. So the other thing is we actually don't know what the Hill received, what Senator Warner has received. It's heavily redacted. And is it just that cover memo? Because if that's the case, and it's not including the supplemental evidence.
Let me ask you about the timeline, because you just referenced this. And last year, around the same time that your client filed this formal whistleblower report, the Washington Post reported that Tulsi Gabbard had installed someone inside the Inspector General's office that reported directly to her, which sounds incredibly shady to me. Just help us understand the timeline of your client's complaint when they went to the IG's office and how it relates or could relate, I guess, to Gabbard reshaping her agency. Her agency's Inspector General's office.
Oh, absolutely. This raises a lot of questions. So first, the whistleblower first reached out to the Intelligence Committee IG's office back in mid-April of last year. You know, you can pick up the phone, initiate contact and whatnot. And that was in mid-April. On May 9th, Dennis Kirk, this person who works for Tulsi Gabbard, she put him into the IG's office. Why? Is it to monitor what's incoming? We don't know.
So before, he had already gone to the IG's office, and then she put her person in there after that.
No, so the whistleblower, he or she, they contacted the IG's office.
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard reportedly, according to this Washington Post article, put somebody in there.
Yeah.
And then the complaint, the disclosure by the whistleblower was filed on May 21st. So the timeline is questionable. And then the fact that there is a debate about whether or not the acting Inspector General at the time reversed decisions or not, there's just a lot of questions that I have about what did or did not happen here.
We don't have much time left. I could talk to you forever, but they also, the New York Times also reported that while Gabbard was restricting your client's report from getting to Congress, she was providing, Tulsi Gabbard, information, the report to Susie Wiles, which also is out of process here. But why is that hugely problematic?
Well, the question is, does Susie Wiles even have the security clearance to see that? One of the things I just want to really hone in on here is that the underlying disclosure was about Tulsi Gabbard blocking intelligence from being distributed within the intelligence community. So I have here my copy of the 9/11 Commission report. One of the recommendations of the 9/11 Commission report was to ensure that the intelligence community and law enforcement shares highly sensitive and classified information to try and prevent tragedies from happening. Here, we have the Director of National Intelligence, her office was created because of this, going in and preventing the distribution of that intelligence. And the question is,